Hi and welcome back to another Alpha Challenge video. In this video I'll be playing Reno Priest. Reno Priest is a deck that doesn't have an extremely high win rate on lower ranks, but it does have a higher win rate in Legend. The idea of the deck is you want to be mulliganing very hard for Elise, and you also want to be making and looking for cards such as Parrot Sanctuary, or for cards such as Bird Watching or the Pennant of Healing. These cards help you search for Elise, and the game plan is to try and get the Elise off as early as turn 5, because if you use Parrot Sanctuary on the first turn using the coin, it means that on the 5th turn you can use the 3rd tick of the Parrot Sanctuary, which means that Elise will cost 5 mana. And when you summon Elise from your deck, you're summoning 5 duplicates rather than 5 copies compared to Dungar. And this then is really powerful compared to Dungar because you can use it to then get some more of those high impact minions. If you have Bird Watching and the Pendant, if you don't get Elise in your pool, it's quite often that you're looking for cards such as the Chill and Vol'jin, because that's not a great card to be getting with your Elise, or the less value cards. So the Stone Drake in this situation I choose because it offers the least value for me, but it also is the minion that I'll be able to play first if I need to, if they end up taking out my Elise in the following turns. So the game plan of the deck is relatively simple. Try and get Elise, mulligan very hard for it, and then try and keep control of the board in a relatively tame way. And then you're able to, you want to try and limit the amount of damage that you take as well. So it's fairly simple. So in this gameplay, I'm currently playing against Handbuff Paladin. Handbuff Paladin can be relatively challenging if you, because they have charge and things like that. And if you don't draw into your minions that can defend you, it does become pretty tricky. You'll notice in this footage that I used the 3-drop card to copy the Reborn minion. It allows me to keep some control of the board. Next turn I will have access to Elise, so essentially the game will be over at the end of next turn, provided I don't draw into any of my important minions. But going into turn 5, I'm not extremely worried that they'll be able to kill me, especially since they've already used their magnetic minion. And as you see, they end up just using a bunch of their minions here, and they attack into me. Next turn, I do have access to Elise. You'll notice here that I don't use the Parrot Sanctuary first. I use Elise because I'm on 6 mana and there's no extra benefit of it. I play down the Elise, I get my 5 minions, so I'm just waiting to see which ones I get. I get Ziliax and Yogg, which is fantastic to have into this board. And what I'm deciding right now is I'm just deciding whether to use the Yogg first or to use the attack first, because I do want to try and get some health back. I end up deciding to use the Yogg first, and I don't have all the minions end up dying as a result of Yogg or them attacking each other. I then just give them pass the turn over to them. In a moment, I'm just looking to see what Yogg ended up casting, and I use the coin here just in case they do try and because I do want to keep my Love Everlasting active, and it's just to keep the Love Everlasting active just in case. And as you can see, they concede because with the Ziliax, it's very hard for them to come back, especially if it's as early as turn 6. This matchup is going into Hunter, so this is just following straight on from the previous game that I just played. Once again, mulligan hard for your Elise style cards. I kept Cash Cow as well because Cash Cow is another card, a strong card to keep, because it allows you to get the coins and then it allows you then to be able to get Elise earlier. The earlier you summon Elise in general, the more likely you are to win, because it's such a big tempo swing, and also it summons such strong minions as well. I played down the Parrot Sanctuary on turn 1, because with the Pendant and also Creation Protocol, it's quite likely that I will end up getting an Elise into my hand. I end up using the Forge here for the Creation Protocol, just in case I need extra value, because Discover Hunter does have a lot of value. It's a value-centric deck. But I do recognize now that since they used the reserve spot, that I'm actually going to be playing against a Trample Hunter. This makes Ziliax extremely important to have here. And right now I'm just deciding whether to use the Creation Protocol first or the Pendant of Earth first. I end up using the Pendant, and when you're using any of these Discover cards, Elise is your main priority to be going for, unless you're going to die the following turn. Because Elise essentially is the way that you win with this deck, because you apply so much pressure going into the turns that are occurring. So they've just played down a few just secrets, so it's not really too much of a concern for me. It could be Ice Trap, could be any of those sorts of things, but there's nothing really too worrying. I do end up using Creation Protocol to get Ziliax. If it was bird watching, I would not have chosen Ziliax, because I want the Ziliax to be coming out with my Elise, because since I know it's going to be a trample hunter, I need to make sure that I have poisonous, or the highest likelihood of poisonous coming out onto the field. This next turn, I do have the last of the Parrot Sanctuary, and you'll notice that I'll be able to play down Elise on turn 5, and then I just need to wait and see what I end up getting through it. So they've used Cup of Muscles. Their minion in their hand is getting quite buffed up, which is a bit scary for me. But once again, having the Ziliax with the Poisonous is very important. I use here the Yogg, and it ends up clearing the board. And it uses a T. It hits my Elise, and then it's also, I have a silence on my Elise as well. And then I pass over to them. So going into the next turn, they will probably be getting to the point, Nilly, that they're going to have their trample minion coming out. I don't believe it will be this turn, but I think it's going to be turn 7, because quite often the deck will go for a turn 7 play for it. They end up keeping that Elise on the field, because if the Elise stays on the field, they end up doing more damage with their trample minion if it's not the rush one. And you will discover, because if it was the rush one, they would have just conceded in the situation. The one that you use it to attack, and then it kills. When it kills an enemy minion, it summons another one. They do use Forging Traps here, so I believe that it's quite likely they're going to be using Freezing Trap. So I attack with Elise first, because I can obviously get it back into my deck through that. It could have been beneficial as well for me to attach with Chill and Vol'jin as well, because then I wouldn't have that dying too, and being able to be hit with the minion, the trample minion. I get the Parrots, the Puppet Theater out as well, just in case. It's not very likely that I'm too concerned of what they end up having. They have Hidden Meaning, which will allow them to be able to trade into my Ziliax and do a little bit of damage to it. I could have played the Puppet Theater between the Chill and Vol'jin and the Ziliax. That probably would have been a strong play, because it would allow me, or onto the 5-drop, because it would allow me then to get, it would allow me to avoid them hitting into both of my minions here. So as you can see, they end up doing quite a bit of damage to me, and I heal back a little with Ziliax. I wasn't in too much of a situation of dying, but if I'd put the Puppet Theater between it and the Chill and Vol'jin, I would have been able to win earlier and have more control earlier. I end up just healing myself back up, because it's important that I do heal, and then they end up conceding. So a change that I would do in that situation is I would have put the Puppet Theater between my Ziliax and one of my other minions. This would then allow me to have a stronger position. They wouldn't be able to hit both of those minions. So with this mulligan here, I kept Puppet Sanctuary, and I also kept Creation Protocol. I'm trying to, once again, I am trying to keep this for the Elise. And with Druid, it's quite often that they are playing Dungar Druid. So I'm also in this situation looking for Puppet Theater as well. I end up using the Parrot Sanctuary relatively early to be able to boost myself up. And since they're playing Dungar, it's quite often that they're going to be ramping anyway, so I'm not really looking for any of my clear spells or my AoEs or anything like that. This following turn, I end up using the Thrive for Shadows, because I want to be trying to draw more cards out of my deck. I could use a Creation Protocol, but it's more likely that I'll end up drawing the Elise through through natural causes rather than not. So I end up using the Creation Protocol to get myself another minion. I choose the Cash Cow, because Cash Cow is probably the second card that you want to be going for in this deck, because it allows you to get to your curve earlier. And I'm wanting to try and get Ziliax out earlier as well for Dungar, just in case. Or Reno if I end up drawing it, or Yogg, just to try and control with what they've got. Drawing the Puppet Theater here is very strong. I do hold the Puppet Theater, because I don't want them to know that I have that. Especially since if they get Yogg or if they get Dungar, I can still use those minions to summon out of my deck. So they play down Dungar this turn, which is fine for me, and it ends up, as you can see, it draws into Ziliax, the Splitting Rock, and the Yogg. So what I am going to do in the following turn is I'm going to use Puppet Theatre to get the Yogg. I'll use the Yogg to take control of the Ziliax, and then I'll have control of their board because they won't have another access to another Ziliax in this game, which is very detrimental for a Dungar Druid, especially since they're not running Kill Jaden quite often. They're usually just running the big 8 drops, and then they're also this essentially ends up clearing their board that's here. So they're also going to overdraw as well since they have 10 cards, but no, they have Innovate, which means that they're not going to overdraw. They use the Cactus Construct, so it gets them another minion onto the board. It ends up being the Colt one. I have a choice here to use the Elise or the Puppet Sanctuary. The Puppet Theatre. I end up using the Puppet Theatre here because although Elise would draw me get me a bunch of minions from the deck, this is a guaranteed clear, and it also will take control of the Ziliax, and it's more powerful for it. Because I have a Monthal, so I'd be able to get rid of their minions anyway, but this ends up having a higher chance of clearing their board as well. I end up playing down Chillin' Vol'jin here as well because I can use it to get my Yogg to become an 8/8 and their Splitting Space Rock to become a 1/1, and then I trade into the Yogg. So this puts me into a really strong position because now they don't have Yogg, they don't have Ziliax into their hydration station pool, and then they don't really have anything else that can majorly set up to deal issues for me. Like, they will have the Stargazers to be able to deal some burst damage, but I am in a situation where I'll be able to get my Ziliax out relatively soon as well, which is essentially stop Stargazing from dealing any sort of major issue towards me. So they play down a few of these tentacles that they got from their Yogg because they wanted to activate their Yogg to try and get it, try and get those spells out as quick as they could. They then play down the 2-drop to increase the cost of my spells. I don't really have any spells in my hand, so it's not really too much of an issue for me. And since they have a wide board, I'm going to use here I'll attack first, then I'll use the Yogg to do the forcing of the minions. I'm thinking right now of Funhouse mirroring into the 4/4, but it's not really too much use. It would also dilute my pool a bit. So I end up just using the AoE to force my opponent's minions to attack each other. And then it ends up getting okay spells. It's not too much of a concern for me. And I'm just deciding here what minion to play down. So I end up playing down the Stone Drake. I'm not playing around Mind Control tech because it's quite often that Dungar Druid isn't playing Mind Control tech. So going into the following turn, they do have a few minions onto their board. There's not really too much that they have in their hand or anything like that. They have their Chaotic Tendrils still, but it's quite likely they're not going to do too much. That one obviously did a little bit by taking out my Stone Drake, and it made my Ziliax a bit weaker, but it's not too much of an issue what they'll end up using with it. They end up getting their alien encounters. They use a new height, so this could be problematic for me if they use stargazers a few times. But it's not that much of an issue either. I end up drawing into the Serenity, and I clear most of the board using it, so it's just to make sure I've got some tempo that's here. I take out one of their minions, and I end up using my Yogg to get some more tentacles. It ends up freezing one of their minions, and I get some rush minions as well, so it means that I can clear their board. I end up playing down one of my tendrils, and that spell, the 1-mana spell that was there, was quite problematic going into the following turn, especially because it's using their health to summon new minions, and if they have Stargazers in their deck, I could be in a little bit of trouble, because they'll be able to summon a few of those, especially with the 11 mana that they have. Luckily, they won't be able to kill me doing that, even with the forbidden spell that they end up playing. They do have the aura as well to make the 10/10s for the tentacles, so that's what's really keeping them relatively strong in this game. They are also able to summon all their minions for free, as you can see, except they're taking some damage, some health damage. They play down both their Stargazers, and then now they have access to 16 armor again using a spell. So this sets them up for having a lot of damage through their cards. They use a seedling as well, so they're able to get all of their armor, and they gain a lot of armor through those Stargazers and also that. They're still sitting on 8 mana as well, so they could use it to all go towards my face with the Forbidden spell as well. And yeah, so right now it's not. I'm in a relatively safe position as well. I just want to try and get as much health as I can because in this following turn, because their board is quite weak, and I could play Elise here, but there's only 2 minions left in my deck: the Thunderbringer and the Splitting Rock, and it's not too beneficial for me. So right now I'm just thinking of how I'm going to play this board down the best as I can. I'm waiting till next turn to get the Ziliax. So I end up just making sure that I've got enough cards in my hand. I do have 10, so that would have been a misplay if I'd used the Puppet Theater. And right now I'm just thinking of what card I'm going to play down first. I end up using the Puppet Theater to copy the Stargazer. So I've got now 2 in my hand as well, so I can get some extra armor. And they're also relatively low cost. So I'm going to here use the Stargazers to go in, play both the Stargazers down, and then I'm going to use my Funhouse Mirror to copy the minion that does octuple damage to itself. I was obviously looking at Stargazer to do that too, because then I wouldn't have to deal with it, but this also clears the board as well with each other. And then I heal myself up and I hit into the Stargazers. So they're sitting right now on not very much health. Once again, unfortunately, I still have the 1 cost that's there. I could have used Holy Coals as well in that situation to be able to deal with the majority of their board, but it still would have had their minion dealing octuple damage to all my minions. They end up playing the Lifebinder, the Iona Lifebinder. This isn't too much of a concern for me because they only had 1 card in their hand, so they have to use it to draw their cards. And what I do in this following turn is I'm right now deciding whether to use Ziliax or Amanthal. I end up drawing Twilight Torrent, so I use that onto the 1/1, and then I use Amanthal to clear both the minions that are there, so then they don't have any that are left on the field. And it also means that I'm not filling up their hydration station as well, so it's another card that's getting removed from that pool. I end up choosing the Carefree Cookie here because I'm not really going to be getting any more armor, and then the outcast minions and spells aren't really necessary for me here. I also do predict that in this situation that I'm not going to need the extra value that much, especially since I have the Ziliax and the Yogg. And I'm also at this point in time thinking that my Amanthal would have survived this attack. But they end up getting a Rush minion, and since they're turning into 10/10s, they're able to take out my Amanthal, unfortunately. Because my next turn that I was going to go for was the Amanthal into the Ziliax. They end up using their hydration station. It only gets 2 minions, so it's once again quite weak, especially for what they have. So now I'm just deciding what I need to end up doing. I could go for the Ziliax, or I could go for the Yogg, or I could go for the Elise. I have a few different options. I could also use the Reno that I just drew. But what I'm thinking of with the Reno is I want to hold it until they come down with the majority of their minions, because I do know they still have the hydration station left in their hand. I am contemplating the Elise, but I end up deciding against it because I want to take out that 8/8, and the minions that I get wouldn't really deal with that, because they'll be able to get some armor and some attack the following turn. So I end up playing down the Ziliax very shortly. I use the Ziliax and trade into the 8/8, and then I just leave their board how it is, because with the Ziliax on the board, they're not really threatening too much, and I'm also able to heal up some more health that's there. They play down their Splitting Space Rock. So this is now getting to a point where I'd be considering using the Reno, because with the Reno, it means that I would be able to clear the 8/8 that's there, while also clearing the rest of their minions that are here. I am still contemplating with what that is, but I just wait and see what they end up playing before I end up doing that. They end up clearing my Ziliax and making it into just the reborn being used, and then their swipe. So it does clear the majority of the cards that are here. I use the Carefree Cookie here because it's the most value that I'm going to be able to get with it. I could use the Elise, but now it's only getting 2 other minions, and I am just contemplating that. I don't end up playing it because, once again, there's only a few minions that's there, and I feel like I'll be able to get more value using the cookie to get a 10 drop. Unfortunately, I only end up getting a giant, so it's not that strong for it, and then I play down my cash cow that I duplicated, and then I pass over to them. So in this situation, since they have no cards left in their deck, and then they also have the cash cow on the board with the Carefree Cookie, I feel like I'm in a relatively safe position because quite often they don't have a way to clear. They do end up, unfortunately, having a Wrath, which isn't very common for Dungar Druids to be running. It's quite often that they're just running Ramp and then all their high-cost minions. So they end up using their last hydration station here. So Reno should essentially end up winning me the game when I do play it down, which is what I'm thinking of for this following turn. They do obviously have the 8 damage that's going there and the extra armor, and then they have the 2 4/4s that are on the field. So now they're just trying to apply as much pressure as they can because they're now into fatigue and they only have 5 cards left in their field. I play down the Reno, and then this should end up being with them conceding because they don't have a board and they shouldn't really have too many minions. And as you can see, they end up conceding there. I'd like to thank the people that have commented on the previous videos about input of the videos. I have hopefully updated this, and would you be able to give me a comment or a like about if this has updated the video quality and also the audio quality?